Hello everybody, this is Jack Dennis and welcome to our fly fishing and tying channel. I hope you're all having a good start to the new year and out tying a lot of flies. We started a couple of weeks ago with our Jack Dennis and Friends fly tying session. Our first one was with Dave Allison, and I'm going to be showing you some from the past. One of the things I've been involved with my fly tying career is setting up fly tying theaters and been involved with the many conclaves that fly fishing groups and clubs have over the country. And they really highlight tyers that you may not have ever met. And one of the best ones is one in Idaho, both the Western Idaho Expo and the Eastern Idaho Expo, which is in Idaho Falls. They've been doing these fly tying get-togethers for a long time. We're talking over 30 years. So I want to do some highlights from some that I filmed in 2009 and 2010. And you'll get a chance to meet some names you know, and maybe some names you didn't know. And one of the nice things about tying at these expos is all the excitement and sounds of people going around telling lots and lots of fly fishing stories. Most of them may be exaggerated. But one of the nice things about the theater is you get a chance to listen to the tyers talk about their experiences and answer questions. I think you're going to enjoy them. We're going to start this week with several. We'll try to give you the most information. And I know some of you are going to say, wow, you know, I don't know about the materials. Well, these are really uncut. So, you know, you do your best on figuring it out. But I think you're going to enjoy the interaction with the crowd and with the tyers. And really uncut and I think extremely fun. Let's get going.
Excuse me. And I think probably one of the biggest problems that people run into when they tie with the CDC dubbing is they have a tendency to want to cut and trim all those really cool CDC fibers that make the fly look really buggy, and we don't want to do that. The buggier it looks, the more we like it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just picking out a couple of the dark brown natural CDC. All right, grab a, whoa, blow my feathers all over here. Okay, this fly is tied on a 206 BL hook. Any of you that aren't familiar with TMC hooks, it's really similar to a kind of a shrimpy looking hook, but it's tied on a curved shank hook. All right, here we go. And again, this is the brown CDC fledgling caddis. Get this hook in the vise. A lot of people, when they tie with these curved hooks, they have a tendency to, you know, to not put the hook in the vise wrong, so they get their proportions wrong. And I know when I first started tying on this hook, I really struggled with getting my body proportions and stuff right, but I think I've tied on it long enough now that I can figure it out. So we're going to start again just behind the eye of the hook. And I'm going to bring my thread back just to about where the barb of the hook would be. If we were tying with a barbed hook, our barb would be about right here on this hook. And you see when I put it in my vise, I've put it in just like I would, so the eye of the hook is normally where a normal eye of the hook would be. And now for this wonderful CDC dubbing. This stuff is so fun. You can see that it's just, it looks like, it kind of reminds me of the lint out of a dryer trap. It's crazy. It's insane. So what we're going to do, and please, 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 if you tie with CDC dubbing, don't touch the dubbing wax because you will totally ruin the CDC dubbing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take, you can see I pulled this much dubbing out of the bag to tie my fly. I've taken about this much dubbing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sit that, I lay my thread right on my finger, and I'm not doing a really hard spin on my dubbing. I'm just kind of getting it to stick on the thread. Once you get it on your hook, it's really easy to control, but you can see just how it has a mind of its own, and it's going to go exactly where it wants to go, and it's going to do exactly what it wants to do, and you just have to sit there and smile because it doesn't matter. Now you see how buggy that looks? I mean, it looks crazy. And one of the really negative, well, it's not a negative, I guess, kind of the drawbacks of tying with CDC dubbing is if you handle it too much, dubbing and stuff, it does get the oil and stuff off of your hands on it really easily, so you kind of have to be careful with that. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a brown partridge feather, and I'm sure many of you that have tied with deer hair or spinning partridge and stuff know the trick to spinning partridge around the hook shank. So what I'm going to do is I've cleaned away all the web and the marabou off the feather. So I'm just going to come in here with the tip of my scissors, and I'm just going to cut a V right out of that feather. So all those fibers are still hooked on the stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull all those into the tip. You can see how I've just got them pinched into the tip. And I'm actually going to sit this partridge on the top of the hook shank because I want to measure how long these partridge feathers are going to be once they're wrapped. And we do want these feathers to, or these fibers to extend out the back, a little ways out the back end of the hook. So I've got it, it's sitting on the top and my thread's in front of my dubbing. So to spin these, I'm just going to kind of hold them loose in my left hand, and I'm going to use my thread and the tension of my thread to spin those fibers around the hook shank. A lot of people, if you have a bare hook shank, it helps to make it easier to spin. But I think after you've tied them or after you've spun anything for long enough, you know how to spin. If not, you know, worst case scenario, take the fly out of your vise, flip it over, tie in some partridge legs. That'll work. Okay, I'm trimming off the butts of my partridge. And you can see I'm not trimming anything. You know, most people would have a tendency to be up here grooming and manicuring. I'm not trimming anything off this fly because I want it to be just as buggy as possible. Now I'm going to take 2 of our dark brown natural CDC feathers. You can see I've got them, you know, they're not identically matched or anything like that. They're just kind of a, you know, close to the same. I'm going to pair them back to back so they flare away from each other. So the natural curve is away from the other one. We're going to even up our tips. So what I like to do when I tie in my wings for the caddis, and I don't do this for everything, but for my caddis I do because it's just easy. I think it's just easier. I guess I start from about the middle of the feather, and I get all those nice fibers in there. And I just pinch. I got my wings pinched in my fingers. So I'm just going to lay these two CDC feathers right on top of my dubbing. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to switch. I'm pinching with my right hand now, and I'm actually pinching the fly, the whole entire fly and the wing together. And I'm just going to come up with my thread. I'm going to make one loose wrap to anchor it on top. And then when I come around the second and the third time is when I'm really going to put the kibosh on that wing to anchor it into position. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut these butts off. I have some really sharp scissors. Okay, I'm going to tie down the base of this just a little bit. And then I'm going to take two lemon wood duck fibers, and I'm going to make some antennas. And all I'm going to do is just pull. I like to actually take 3. In case I do mess up, I can always trim one out. We want our antennas to extend beyond our wing just a little bit. And again, I'm just going to do the loose wrap and then cinch it down. Cut off the butts. And the final step to this fly is we're going to form a little head. We're going to go back to that crazy dubbing. And I'm just, again, taking a little tiny bit, laying it on my thread, and just dubbing just a little tiny bit. You can see how I formed just a nice, neat, small head. Now, as much as I've talked about not trimming all the errant fibers, around the eye of your hook, you're going to want to trim a few. So we're just going to come in cut a couple off, tie off our, and it really is a challenge to keep from trimming and grooming, but that's how we want it to look. We want it to be just as buggy and as we can. So that is a fledgling, brown CDC fledgling caddis. Any questions? Hi. Okay.
You said you maintain the flies well, keep them well, they'll last for a long time. So these are special don't boil it, right?
What do you do to treat the CDC? You can, after you fish it, if we have a special pre-noil floatant that we use to, to treat the CDC, and you do technically, you should treat, your CDC flies, with some form of floatant. If you can use the CDC floatant, and if you have access to it, it just helps keep, the feathers conditioned. It keeps your whole fly conditioned. Yes. And I can show you some. I have some if you'd like to see it. So, any questions on the buggy fly? No more? All right. As I said earlier, today I decided that I was going to demonstrate 4 of my specific favorite patterns. We've already did the transitional